Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out. September of '06, I was fortunate enough to be invited out to this beautiful place. And when Sister Tanae and I came in here, I was really taken by the fact that somebody outside of the Shrine of the Black Madonna had actually put in some work and built an institution that African people can stand on and embrace their spirituality without being, as we'd say, influenced. And it's always a pleasure to stand in these institutions and be able to speak about African spirituality. Some of us have been to Africa, the West, the East, the South. In my travels to Africa, one of the things that have always been interesting was the coolness and the craftiness of their reverence to their ancestors. And when you sit to talk to them about it, they don't get into certain sciences like we do. You know, we got all the books, you know, we got all the academics, but the advantage that they have over us is that they're born into it. They don't have to go to school for it. It's right there in the home, and it's embraced from the time they come out the womb. In the Ifa tradition, the third day a child is on this earth, they have what is called an esentaye, where it's a naming ceremony. They discover this child's orisha, what ancestor has come back, what is its purpose, and what can they do for it to attain it and maintain it. And unfortunately, some of us, we don't get that till we're 35, 40, 45, and 50. So one of my godfather's dreams was to bridge the gap between science and religion, but also that we get an understanding of ancestral reverence, because a lot of us in the Ifa tradition, you know, we get taken away with orisha. You know, we wear lekis like it's bling bling. And, you know, we'll carry ourselves, you know, where you got to bow down to me, and, you know, you got to eat tofu on Tuesday and all this kind of stuff. And we miss the science of it. And the science of it goes all the way back to the Nile Valley, that salvation lies within the knowledge and awareness of self. And that's what you bring to the group. So you don't get in the group and get a position on being the best Obatala or being the best Oshun. Everybody wants to be Oshun, you know. So what I've come to learn is that when you start understanding the science of things, and this is what my Aluo, the late Afalabi Opega, taught us, and I asked him, I said, Baba, what is the most important thing that we in America as Africans need? He said, you need to know. I said, know what? You need to know what is coming up. And I thought about it, and if you know Africans or even elders, as they get older, they talk less. But the things that they say often have more merit and impact than it did when they were young like we were, and we tried to talk all day long trying to figure out things. And he took me down this road about how he came up as a child and what he was taught, and being fifth, sixth generation Luo. He's part of a royal family that comes out of Ode Rimo, Ogun State. And he showed me a staff that's been in his family. And when I asked him how old it was, he was eating a banana. He said, I think it is 960 years old. How do you comprehend looking at something 960 years old and can reference it and its purpose? And as we began to talk, and as we began to dialogue about as much as he could reference from where I was coming from in an African tradition and an African-American tradition, with an African-American tradition trying to adopt an African tradition, we managed to come up with some things of understanding. And when he mentioned the thing about we need to know, he talked a little about more about divination and how important it was. But more so than anything, the importance of is when you get your answer or you get your solution, it is now up to your character to fulfill or either step away from what it has given you. So if it is something that tells you to step away, you step away. If it's something that tells you to step into it, you step into it. And it is your character that brings your salvation. And of course, character only comes with you having the knowledge and awareness of yourself. And the things that I want to talk about tonight, as the title says, embracing the new and detaching from the old. And my first topic is transformations. As I was telling Sister Tanae, what was I going to talk about? I have class once a month in Houston. And I may talk about Orisha for about 10 minutes. And then after that, we go into basically people's testimonies, people's experiences of what has occurred from last class to the next class. And I teach signs and symbols. There's a reason why there's a snake on your porch this morning. It ain't been no snake on your porch most mornings. Why is a snake on your porch this morning? There's a cardinal sitting on the branch in your backyard. And you ain't seen a cardinal in 15 years. Why is this cardinal in your backyard on the branch? Well, cardinal in the tradition represents renewing your vitality through self-importance. Snake deals with transformation. Cats show up, dogs show up, things show up at different places, times. Numbers show up, your dreams. This is the way the thing we reference as God has always talked to us. It's always spoken through signs and symbols. The universal language, numbers, astrology, numerology, sacred geometry. These are the languages of what we consider from the Most High. And so tonight when I said that I was going to talk about transformation and these signs and symbols, explained through the sciences, astrologically, numerical, the transformation is spoken through an Orisha in the Ifa tradition called Oya. And this Orisha has many attributes. This is her number, 9. She is considered the guardian of the cemetery, the mother of transformation. If you know anything about cemetery, there's a transition that has taken place. Death is the beginning of life. If you're familiar with the energy or the sacred system of Kemet, about the duat and the lions. The lion that sits at the door of death represents life. And the lion that sits at the door of life represents death. Because when you're born, the process of dying begins. You don't get no younger. And as you die and you go back to those elements and those minerals and those plants and you become fossil fuel, the process of life begins because the spirit goes home. So there's a sacred time and there's a sacred season. And the sacred time and the sacred season that we're in now is called Oya. Now, my brother, who is a Babalawo as well, Baba SangoDare Fagbemi, is a master numerologist, astrologist. He the numbers man, planet man. That ain't my thing. I know a little bit about it because I've been listening to him. But he's going to talk about some things here in the second part of this that deals with the energy of Pluto going into Capricorn for the next 16 years. And what he's going to allow you to hear and understand is how its impact is on a world stage. What I'm going to talk about first is how this transformation and impact affects you on an individual stage in your home. Because as a Christian would say, if you don't get it at the time, you will be left behind. So it's about embracing change. It's about detaching from certain things of old and embracing the new. And that's what the spirit of the wind, Oya, spirit of the wind, mother transformation, owner of the cemetery, the spirit of 9, the one who brings the winds of change. She is Hurricane Katrina. The people of New Orleans, I'm from Houston. The people of New Orleans, as I would often go there to visit, and I would go in the 9th Ward area, and you know New Orleans has been raped as simply a party and tourist town. It's poorly educated, poorly financed. The law system, the justice system is corrupt. But who cares? when you can go down there and drink till you puke, and people can throw some bees out at you. Life is good. It's a party place. There were people in the Ninth Ward area had never been out of Ninth Ward. There were people in New Orleans had never been out of New Orleans. And when they were told to leave, there's a friend of mine, she's a voodoo priestess, Ava K. Jones, that every time a hurricane would come to that area, Sister Ava would divine with her boa around her neck, and she would divine, she's a child of Oya. And she would say, my mother Oya told me I don't have to leave. And she weathered the storms. But when Katrina was coming and she did a divination, she called Houston and said, I need a place to stay. Because the winds of change are coming, and it's not going to be pretty. As much as they failed to get the people out of there, and I believe this, that if there was an opportunity for everybody to get out there, I still believe there were those that would not have left because they cannot embrace change. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful of what you ask for when you are a spiritual people, because the people of New Orleans are very spiritual people, rich in tradition of spirituality, African spirituality. And the thing that they called for years came upon them. They wanted change. They knew this and knew that. The local government didn't hear their cry. The state government didn't hear their cry. The federal government, the United States government didn't hear their cry. But Katrina put them on a world stage of change. And when she came, what was amazing was they never thought it would hit in that area. They thought it would turn and go someplace else. And what's even more amazing, how all these hurricanes start off the west coast of Africa, but they never hit Africa. I'm going to leave that one to the ancestors. That's their business. So anyway, as I would talk to people in New Orleans that they came into Houston, because we did work for those that came, different community groups, community organizations. I know the Nation of Islam was heavily involved, Shrine of the Black Madonna, a lot of the local churches, local black organizations, grassroots organizations. They were all embracing the people of New Orleans. And some of the stories you would hear, of course, about some of the conspiracy that happened. You know, I'm not going to doubt it because I wasn't there. But the most amazing thing was how they talked about how they had all called for change. I was tired of living like that. I can't live like this. I ain't got no job. They got all these gangs, these police shooting everybody. The police is one of the most corrupt police departments in the land. I did some work for a lady whose grandson was accused of shooting a cop in all the melee. And the best advice his lawyer could give him was that he needs to stay in hiding. So we did some work, some rituals. We kept him in hiding until he was able to go to trial, and his case was dismissed. But the thing of it was that she had said, I don't care what has to happen to get his attention. Even if he got to go to jail, at least I know where he is. Well, he was about to go to jail. And she wanted to call back a prayer. Be careful of what you're calling for in this time, because the winds of change are listening. And black people got something a lot of folks ain't got. We feel it. We get chills. Some of us shake and rattle. We get in our knees. Most of us, some of us, would not trust our intuition. It's our gift. But when we feel it and we speak sincerely, the winds of change always come. And now it is upon us. In the spirit of Ifa, when we go to Oya, most Babalawos, Aluos, the priests or priestesses, don't always like to do her rituals. It's a very delicate operation. It takes a lot of divination. You have to decide what she wants. Because if there's any slip, tradition says she's going to remove it at any cost. So you must be specific on how you bring in that energy. Now, I have godchildren, 60, I think, in number. That's what they told me. And I have a lot of them that are children of Oya. But the most amazing thing is probably about the last year when I've been doing divination and giving people reading and giving the readings for head. There's a lot of children of Oya coming. And if you know you're a child of Oya, if you know you carry the energy of Oya, you have now become a conduit, a vehicle for change. And the most powerful word you can have in your vocabulary is no. Not gonna happen. I run across a lot of Christian ministers. Matter of fact, they come for readings, mostly late at night. Oftentimes they go before the councilman. And they always say, you know, Baba Femi, Brother Steve, man, you can't come to my church, man. So I don't need to come to your church. I said, your church gonna go to everybody that thinks like me. I said, you can't do nothing about it. Well, guess what happened 3 weeks ago? USA Today reported, CNN had a talk show, C-SPAN had a talk show. Church participation is on the way down. And the fastest growing denomination is non-denomination. And I told them, I said, if you're not progressive, the people are gonna leave. I said, but you can be progressive. They're going to leave anyway. Because, see, after non-denominational, they up out of there. That's your last stop. And when we talk about the meaning of changes in Western religions and the indigenous systems, the indigenous people have always had it right. You all remember the tsunami? Did y'all see the 60-minute special when they interviewed the people? And they talked to the old wise priest by the boat. And he said, how did y'all know? He said, we always know. He said, well, I mean, but how did you know? He said, the water receded. And the animals went to the hills. He said, so you knew it was danger? He said, yeah, because we always listen to nature. Ifa means the wisdom of nature. It's not just a religion. It is a sacred science and a sacred system. And because of our Western philosophical perspective, we often take things that are sacred and make them a religion. And once we bastardize that, we lose our train of reasoning. And what these people are trying to tell the 60 Minutes crew is that we don't understand why y'all wasn't going up there with us. You have all the technology. You had ships out in the area. You didn't see anything coming. Our fishermen said, the bounty was low. Something is wrong. And then the water receded. The animals say, we out of here. And then there were hotel employees who were of that area wanted to sue them for not telling them. And of course, that's ludicrous. Oya has been trying to come in for some time now. The Fifth Dimension came out with a song in, 65, the Age of Aquarius? And in 1992, we entered in what the Dogon call dream time. The Aborigines call no time. From 1992 to 2012 is the big sleep, where all the children, whom of which are in this room, that just can't do what the status quo say you got to do. The weird ones, the black sheeps, the strange ones, the ones that your mama pray for every Sunday. Well, we are the conduits. We are the vehicles for change. And in this period, we have been called to get the word out. Because not only is it going to occur on a world stage, and as I said, SangoDare is going to explain how it impacts a world stage. But from a local perspective, your home and what stares back at you at the mirror, there's an Odu in the Ifa oracle called Irete Idi. And about a year ago, about 8 months ago, this Odu just kept coming up and coming up. even in readings, categories, positions. Odu number 120 says, speaks of the resistance to, but the necessity for change in a relationship. The client needs to reappraise a relationship that is no longer working. Irete means to initiate. It deals with humbleness and humility, but at the same time, it warns of intrigue into other people's matters. It also is an Odu that says we often would fill up our plate with other people's stuff. We need to give it back. Sisters, that brother you've been holding on too long, that got all them promises. This ain't against the brothers. I don't think there's nobody in this room. But your sister, your girlfriend, your coworker that loves to share that story with you of what he has done now, tell her no. Can't hear that no more. You're draining me. You're a vampire of consciousness. And I love you, but you're sucking me. And I got work to do. So I need for you to either cut this brother off so we can have a decent conversation. You got to find you another host. Because I'm a conduit for something else. That job you hate. Farrakhan once said, you scared of a job? If you got sense will get you dollars. But see, we've set our expectations high for certain vehicles, certain things. And Katrina proved she'll take those things. People say the poor people of New Orleans suffered. The rich people suffer because the poor people ain't there to do the work for them no more. So you got a new class of people. I don't know what they call themselves. They say, well, there's a middle class, or upper middle class. I don't know what class they have now because the percentages are low. But this is the impact of what a change can do. So on an individual level, you need to start reevaluating your position and the people in your environment. If we are in a time of transition, Oya is a warrior queen. The reference of Oya in Vodun is what they invoked during the uprising to run the French out of Haiti. The spirit of Oya. And they speak of the maroons. The color of Oya is maroon, purple, earth tone. She is not a negotiator. People who carry the spirit of Oya are normally working for Child Protective Services. They're lawyers, legal strategists, activists, Angela Davises, Huey P. Newtons. The energy of Oya in dealing with transformation brings about it with strategy. Because in the Ifa myth, Shango is her favorite husband. Shango, Oya is Shango's favorite wife because she knows his magic. Shango is 6, she is 9. Shango is ancestor, she sits at the cemetery where the ancestors go. It's a perfect match. And I look at the name of the president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. It is King Shango who the ancestors sent back to redeem Nigeria. Now that's some Nigerians don't think he's doing enough redemption, but for the most part, that's his purpose. So we all have a purpose. And we all have what we call an intent, a path, potential that needs to be fulfilled. So with our individual changes that we must make in the spirit of Oya, it would be wise for everybody to have some type of altar that represents the winds of change. To say, I will embrace change. I will not be a victim to change. I will only succumb to change when I know it's going to bring me the peace and the prosperity, not only of myself, but that which lives next door to my left and to my right. For that which I share time with, the environment that I wish to rebuild. And I don't mean that you go out and hurt people's feelings, but I mean you might need to go out and hurt people's feelings. Because you got to know it's a time out for certain stuff. It's just certain conversations you just don't want to hear anymore. been a lot of talk about Barack Obama. And the only thing I got to say about Barack Obama is I love them pictures of him over in Africa with his elders, or reverencing his ancestors. And as an AME minister told me, he said, Barbara, I don't think it's a chicken and goat left in King. That boy blessed. And then they showed the picture, was it his grandmother? Sitting there holding a chicken like this on CNN. And I think that night he won his 7 or 8 straight delegate. That wasn't no chicken for KFC. You got to The altar of Oya, candles that are purple, maroon, eggplant, glass of red wine, red grapes, anything resembling a buffalo, a deer, a bison, antelope, Cape buffalo, 9 pennies, 9 pieces of fruit. And it would be wise to develop a new affirmation along with your existing prayers, communicating more with your ancestors about change to help your siblings, your children, your extended family members who are still deliberating or considering what kind of change they need to make, because they know something is going on. They just don't know what it is. But since they've been scared of you most of your life, it's hard for them to come to you. So in the spirit of the Odu, I was talking about irete idi. Be humble. Show humility. We're all priests and priestesses. Some of us walk a different path as one, but we're all priests and priestesses. And we have jobs to do to embrace change. The individual personal changes you need to make considering your job, your finances. A close friend of mine told me once, the first requisite of good spirituality is get out of debt. Because I don't care how much Jesus you got, how much Buddha you got, how much Muhammad you got. If you broke, you don't even feel like praying. Somebody give you a check, you go pray. But if you broke, they ain't hearing me no way. So develop a new affirmation. Speak with sincerity. Come from the heart. Give a PowerPoint presentation to your ancestors. Talk to where it makes sense to them. You know, some of us want a Lexus. You know, some of us want bigger things. Be careful. Be mindful of what you ask for. Sense has always paved the way for better things. Intelligence has always taken precedent. Emotions are good. We need them. But when emotions often take precedent, your business will move slowly forward. In the spirit of Oya, what I would really like to see people do is understand that the change is necessary. It's gonna happen, whether you like it or not. I often tell people that when you're a judge and you step in the energy of a judge, making a decision in between what is right and what is wrong is easy. What's good, what's bad, that's easy. But when you have to decide between what is right and what feels right, that's tough. And that's the kind of change we're in. A lot of us have our traditions. I only ask that you re-examine that which you feel is not working within your tradition. Didn't ask you to leave it, but you might want to redefine it. You might want to knock out some kinks. You might want to add some things or take off some things. Change it up. Since change is here, go look for some things to change. Because if it comes to you and you're not prepared, it may knock you off your equilibrium. And you might not be able to recover. And you might lose your faith. So, in the changes of religious structures, primarily it's what I'm talking about in our own individual belief systems. As far as on a Western religion, now I said this without trying to be sarcastic to some children at the University of Houston, but this professor, and I stepped out a little character, I ain't gonna lie, I stepped out a little character, because I was a former Sunday school teacher. And he wants to tell me about how I cannot equate the Bible astrologically and theologically. Well, you know, he went to theology school. He's a theologian. I said, good, you got a theory. I said, I deal with science. God say, I'm omniscience, all science. Science means to know. And I want to say, well, Negro, I'm going to tell you what I know, but I didn't say that. I just said, well, here's what I know. And I know some of y'all can agree, most theologians in the Christian tradition don't understand most of what the Bible's written in. So I spoke a little Hebrew to him, a little Sanskrit, and he didn't understand what I was saying. So when I told him where it was in the King's English tradition, it put him in a place that he couldn't get out of. And my point was, in short, the disciples say, Father, how will we know at the sign of the times the end of days? And Christ said, you'll go into the new city, and there you see a man bearing a pitcher of water. At that time, you'll know the coming of the end of times. Well, the guy said, that's right, it was the end of time. I said, but you're here. How could it be the end and you're here? But from an astrological perspective, those of us that know the zodiac knows that's a sign of Aquarius. Christ was the fish. He represented the Piscean age. So as we move to new ages, and that's what we're moving to now, the Western religions are struggling. As I mentioned earlier about the lowest turnout of the denominations, they say the fastest growing denomination is non-denominational, and the denominations that people are born into, that they're dropping out of the fastest, is Jehovah's Witness. Second was the Roman Catholics. And the expert guy said that because, and he said really it's bigger than that, because if it wasn't for the Latino, Central and South American influence, and the Mexican influence, it wouldn't even be that high. I mean, it would actually be a lot higher. The ones, as much as they riding their bikes, is not doing a whole lot. Anybody see the brother on YouTube? Go to YouTube and look for something called Brother Flip the Script. You saw that? Some Mormons rolling up on a brother in a parking lot on their bikes, and the brother was real cool and he allowed them to speak. In about 20 minutes, the Mormon was about ready to almost fight this brother. Now, you ever heard of a Mormon on a bike ready to throw down? He flipped the script. He took their Bible, he took his Bible, and he spanked them. And I liked it because the lady in New York, she was a secretary for Raul Nefer, and she sent it to me, and she told me, said, Baba Fim, this is what you was talking about up here in Brooklyn. How you just never know when you roll up on somebody what they know. And that brother was willing to stand there. And he said, no, you can't leave. You came up here. And you wanted me to hear you. You was going to give me a book. You didn't even give me my book. I asked you, I said I had something to say. You said you would listen. Now, why would anybody black want to join the Mormons? I don't know. I read up on the Mormons, and I asked them one day after they spoke, I said, do you know what the word Mormon, what is a Mormon? And he went into the Joseph Smith thing, and I went into the thing about a Moor man. And he didn't know. I said, so when you find out what a Moor man is, you come back. I said, and I still want the book, because I like books. That's the only reason why I listened to him, because I wanted the book. And I say that because when I saw the brother on YouTube, and when I was dealing with the professor at University of Houston, and I look at all the changes in the Western religions, it's not that we're out here to pick on people. But I think it's time when the Jehovah's Witnesses knock on the door, ask them in. Don't lock, don't close the blinds. Tell them to come on in. If they bold enough to walk and talk, come on in. You see them on the bicycle, get a bike and ride with them. To me, that's the spirit of change. Because if they are the fastest denomination for people to pull out of, that means they still got a few more. And those are the ones that probably need to learn about their ancestors or to get back to their African mind. Because the Jehovah's Witness, the brothers don't even understand that 33rd degree Master Mason named Charles Taze Russell never really cared for black folk. Never really cared for them. It was an economic move based upon something called the Clifton Conference, where all the white ministers got all the black ministers down off the coast of South Carolina and told them how to teach the Bible. That's an actual conference. It's in a book about that thick called the Clifton Conference. Clifton. So I say that to say all of this is that the indigenous systems on the planet, where you're African, Mayan, Aboriginal, or you're just out in the outback, have always been in tune with nature. And when nature speaks, she speaks through the signs and the symbols. And the signs and the symbols that it's speaking to right now, if you sit still for a short period of time, on a daily basis, and just get quiet and just listen, they have a lot to tell you, because you got a lot of work to do. And since y'all not no punks, you need to be about the business and embrace change. Don't be scared. Even if you don't feel good, you got to know it's the right thing to do. I thank y'all for listening to me. I'm going to ask my brother to come up here. He's going to discuss things on the world change, world stage, and we'll go into some Q&A. Thank you.
How y'all doing? I'm a little bit under the weather, so bear with me. Change. World stage. I'm trying to see what he got down here that I'm going to speak about. I didn't know what I was talking about until about 2 years ago. Okay. I want everybody to look at the board. And since we're dealing with on a world stage, we'll be looking at it from an astrological and numerical perspective, and how Pluto going into Capricorn. So I want to check.
I think you'll be good over there.
Okay, y'all can hear me? Yes. Okay. I want to lay down some ground first, so you'll see where I'm taking this. When you're dealing with astrology on a world stage, we study something that we call the zodiac. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with the zodiac. In Egypt, people think this is a Christian symbol. But this symbol is on the walls of the pyramids. It represents the 4 cardinal points. In Egypt and in other indigenous systems, this was the foundation of the science of astronomy. The first 4 cardinal points, as we know in Western astrology, is Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. We also know in astrology that the science of stars all began, as far as the giving birth of stars, begins in the house of Virgo, the constellation of Virgo. This is why when you study sciences of antiquity, Virgo meant the house of bread. The house of bread translates to Beth Lehem. Okay? Bethlehem. This is the whole science of the son being born in Bethlehem of a virgin, which is the house of Virgo. Okay? So this whole storyline, whatever culture, what if it's Christianity, what if it's Islam, what if it's Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever it's Ifa, is dealing with the heavens. When we study the science of astrology, they have what we call a great year. The great year lasts approximately 26,000 years, 25,920 years to be exact, divided into 12 aspects known as the so-called 12 houses. So this is how we was able to map out the heavens and could actually predict what was going to happen 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, even 6,000 years out. Because what our scientists discovered through observation is that once a particular planet goes into a house, we'll give an example, we'll say Scorpio. Scorpio is a house that represents sexual organs of the human body. It also represents health in the body, like diseases and things of that nature. What they discovered was that when a particular planet goes into that house, whatever the meaning of that particular planet is, once it goes into the house of Scorpio, things on a planetary level will be dealing with sex. One of the things that occurred back in the early 80s and through the mid 80s, we were in the house of Scorpio. Pluto went into the house of Scorpio. Pluto is a planet that represents transformation. It represents death and change. It represents tearing down things that need to be looked at and exposing them. Well, when we studied the 80s, we realized that what was the biggest thing in the health profession? That AIDS. Pluto is a planet that brings forth change. And it exposes things in an area that it goes into for people to look at, to transform, and to change. When we go into the next house from Scorpio, it would be Sagittarius. Sagittarius represents philosophy, religion, culture, and law. So this is saying that if Pluto goes into this house, when Pluto goes into this house, the areas of religion, philosophy, culture, all of these areas would be affected by Pluto. Things would change. One of the examples of this is what Fagbemi was talking about. When you look at all the religious structures, they have changed. We came out of Sagittarius January 25th, 2008. Now we have come into Capricorn. Now when we look back in history, every single time, we'll go back as an example for 500 years. If I go back the last time Pluto was in Capricorn, what we had was a revolutionary war. The British were fighting the American colonists because they were fed up, supposedly, of representation, or as they say, taxation without representation. So once Pluto goes into Sagittarius, it's a revolutionary thought or a revolutionary process of the mind, because it deals with philosophical thought. It deals with religious beliefs. It deals with ideals and higher knowledge and wisdom. So once Pluto comes up out of that particular house, now it comes on stage to challenge authority. Capricorn represents authority. Capricorn represents leadership. Capricorn represents big business. Capricorn represents corporations. Capricorn represents T.D. Jakes. Capricorn represents Roman Catholic Church. Capricorn represents Islamic extremists. Capricorn represents anything dealing with hierarchy in any religion, any philosophy, any corporations, any business, anything dealing with a power structure that limits the movement of people that are not considered in big power government. Pluto comes in and tears it down. But initially, Capricorn would tighten the reins just to make the little man even more upset. And through history, we have realized once Pluto comes into Capricorn, the authority will be challenged. It's not about if they are challenged. It has to be challenged because the energy is dictating that. Once we'll go back to time before the American Revolution. We go back to 1517. 1517, a few years before 1517, Pluto was in the house of Sagittarius. Pluto's in Sagittarius tells me that they are challenging, they're getting a revolutionary thought process of their mind, dealing with religion and philosophy and higher knowledge. Well, in 1517, there's a person by the name of Martin Luther in Europe, and he comes to the realization that what he believes and what the Catholic Church says you should believe is a bunch of baloney. So if you go back 16 years or 12 years when Pluto was in Sagittarius prior to the Protestant Reformation, that means these people were actually studying and learning more about what they believe in, and Pluto was transforming their mind. So by the time Pluto comes into Capricorn, people like Martin Luther, people like what's that funny man, King James, King Henry VIII, all these people start challenging their belief system. They start challenging authority. And once they challenge the authority, then all of a sudden the Protestant Reformation is born. Now, did the church leave? No. So what changed? The people changed. The hierarchy never changed. But the people changed, therefore the hierarchy had to modify its approach. And that's where we are today. If you go back to when the colonists fought the British, did the British change? No. Who changed? The colonists. So that means the British had to modify their approach. So now we're at 2008. We're on the brink of history. Every time Pluto goes into Capricorn, it always leaves its mark in history because there is always evidence of authority being challenged and changed. And so that's where we are now. Okay? And it's always on a planetary. Now, we do not know enough, I guess, based upon our history in all other parts of the world to show examples. But one of the things that we can show is that during this same time period of this so-called change, there was also a beginning period of what we call the slave trade. Now, something didn't go right. During the same time period when people were challenging authority in other parts of the world, what happened in Africa? Remember what I just said. Pluto is in Capricorn. It came into Capricorn in 517 or 515 during the 512, during the Protestant Reformation. What was going on prior to that? That's when Pluto was in Sagittarius. That dealt with religion, philosophy, and culture. So that means during that same time period, the continent of Africa was on this planet. So that means that same thought process was going on in the continent of Africa. Something didn't go right. Somebody didn't embrace change. If you don't embrace change, change will change you. So my strong belief is this. If we go back in history, we will see each and every time when Pluto goes into Sagittarius and comes out and goes into Capricorn, if you do not embrace change, change will change you and you will always be on the bottom. If you go back into the first century, Pluto was in Sagittarius in the first century. They call it the beginning of so-called Christianity. When Pluto went into Capricorn, that's when all the so-called leaders of the Christian church started getting assassinated. Why? Because they challenged the power structure. They challenged the authority. Then another 250 years from that is when there was a power struggle. There was a person by the name of Arius. Is anybody familiar with Arius? If you go back and study Arius, he's the one who's known to have led the Aryan rebellion back in the 4th century. Now, if you go back into the late 3rd century, when Pluto was in Sagittarius, this is the transformation of political and religious thought on the planet. Arius was a person that said, the person that you say is Christ is nothing more but a created creature. He is not divine, based upon what you are teaching us. They got all these teachings from Osiris and Isis. This is Arius, okay? He challenged the authority. But guess what? He lost. Why? There wasn't enough people to embrace change. Arius was born in Africa. Arius was an Egyptian priest. So, based upon Arius, they called Nicene Council. Okay? During the Nicene Council, this whole thing was set up. Why? Because the people were starting to challenge authority. So when they challenged that authority, the Roman government, i.e. through the church, had to change its strategy. And then we come up with the guy by the name of, what's the emperor's name? Constantine. Now, if you study Roman history, before Constantine comes into power, there's another emperor, and I can't think of his name top of my head. They were persecuting so-called, and I have to say so-called. The reason I had to say so-called Christians at that time is because when you study early Christianity, you had people that were worshiping a deity by the name of Serapis. Serapis was an Egyptian deity that was created in a movement when the Greeks came in under Alexander. When they came in, which was, if you study history about Pluto again, it's right there at that same time period. They come in and invade. Once they invade, Alexander, of course, he gets killed. Ptolemy I, which is basically the second ruler of ancient Kemet at the time, after Alexander leaves, he comes in and sets out to change the image of the religion of Egypt. Before then, they dealt with they dealt with symbols and nature and things of that nature. So now Serapis is born because we have Osiris and Apis or Apis the bull. You put those two together, you get Osiris or Serapis. From there, they start changing the image from a bull, from the image of Osiris to a European image. Okay? That is why if you pull back the veil of our indigenous, if you pull back the veil of Christianity and Jesus Christ, you will find the indigenous systems of Africa in it. At the same time, all you have to do is change the image and use some little linguistics, and you will see it's nothing more but ancient Egypt. Okay? So when that occurred, there was change. When they fought against authority, the authority had to regroup and come back with a new attack. Their attack was successful because the image that they portrayed lived on. Then we come back to the same challenge back in 527 AD, Justinian I. There was a bunch of chaos again in the empire. The same fight that was going on 250 years prior was the same fight that was going down in 527 AD. And what happened was Justinian had to come back, regroup, and convert all these people and bring them back up under one umbrella. As we move on, you have that same fight again, and we're still at that same fight. So now the question is, are we going to continue to say, well, we're going to be changed by change itself, or are we going to embrace it? It's up to you. It's up to us. Because when you look at it on a planetary level, it's got to change. But just because it changes doesn't mean you're going to like it. Because if you don't embrace change, change will find you, and the hierarchy will change, but for their benefit, not for yours. Because just because things are going to change doesn't mean that they're not going to be in power. The only way they're not in power is if you embrace change. If the Africans would embrace change when Pluto went into Capricorn back in the late 1400s, if the Africans would have embraced the philosophical information and knowledge that they already had instead of hiding it back in the late 15th century, then we wouldn't be going through this. But they didn't embrace change. They let change change them. So that's where we are. So are there any questions?
You gave the dates when Pluto left Sagittarius and when Pluto entered Capricorn. Could you give those again?
Pluto entered into Capricorn January 25th, 2008. It will go in retrograde in June of 2008, and it will go back into Sagittarius until November 2008. No coincidence for the election for the President of the United States.
Greetings, brother.
Hotel.
Thank you both.
Peace.
I followed you, but I missed why the planet Pluto is so important.
The planet Pluto.
That's Oya's planet. In the Ifa tradition, the Orishas are lined up with planets. And in the tradition, Pluto is Oya's planet. And it represents, it's the deep planet, it's the deep thinking planet. You want to expound on that as well?
It represents
Yeah, death and
death.
change.
It represents death and rebirth. Death and rebirth. It represents pure transformation. If you study astrology and study Pluto, which is the natural planet for Scorpio, if you had no knowledge whatsoever and you just read and studied Pluto and Scorpio, and you went to Nigeria and said the same thing, they wouldn't know anything about Pluto. They wouldn't know anything about Scorpio. They would say, that is Oya.
They say, oh, you're talking about Oya. Because, see, they just giving names. And that's what I was saying earlier in the lecture. When you go there and we, we got the books, we got the academic, they will look at you like, because they're born into it and they've given it names and it's part of their lifestyle, it's part of their culture. So no, they don't know really about Pluto. You can catch one of the kids at the universities, but for the most part, out in the bush or the village, the tradition is, they look at it as an Orisha. Or then you go to Kemet, you get down into the east of the Nile Valley, they'll call it like one of the Netters, the Washet. It's transformation. It's time for change.
Thank you. I'd like to know how long Pluto stays in a sign or a house.
Approximately 16 years.
But
Now, in Sagittarius, this past time it stayed in Sagittarius 12 years, based upon that it has an elliptic orbit. So that means it's not carved in stone that it's going to be in each house 16 years, but it stays in approximately 16 years on the average.
so in November, you said it was leaving Capricorn?
I said Pluto went into Capricorn January 25th, 2008.
Yeah.
It stays in Capricorn approximately 5 to 6 months, but it retrogrades. Retrogrades means it seems to go backwards, so it goes back into Sagittarius briefly for about 5 months, and then it'll come back into Capricorn for 16 years. It'll stay there to 2024.
Thank you.
We got a sister over here, a brother right here, and then we'll come back to you.
And just to add to that, because one of the questions we get a lot, what role does Barack Obama play in this? The one thing we know for sure when we talk about challenging authority and that authority being moved out the way to a certain degree, the one thing we do know primarily is there won't be a white man in office. I mean, even the priest of Africa has already spoken that. They said, no, you have no white man in office. Oh, it's a celebration. So it's going to either be Barack Obama or Hillary. And the way it looks like, I think it's going to be Barack, because that's death and change on a world stage. As he was saying about the American Revolution, the Protestant Reformation, those are the things we had to study in college, and in high school.
Me. If I'm not mistaken, I think I was listening to the news like months ago, and they were saying that I guess they lied to us again about there's no Pluto.
See, that's the first thing they had to do,
So,
is they had to dismiss Pluto as a planet.
but I think, I don't know if I'm the only one that heard that, but, oh, okay. All right.
What they said was the community that gives itself authority in astronomy, that Pluto had been demoted to a dwarf planet. Now, what determines if it's a dwarf planet or a real planet? It doesn't matter. It is the impact and the punch it brings. And any astrologer will tell you the planet that brings the biggest punch and is known for power is Pluto. It's the smallest in the solar system, but it carries the biggest punch because it deals with death. Straight up.
Believe it or not, and I found this out years ago when Ronald Reagan was president, the Pope was the biggest astrologist on the planet. And the powers that be have a way of getting into the institutions very subtle and put something out there. Because if they know it brings change on the world stage, somebody like us and somebody like you are going to come across the whole concept of what Pluto is. So the first thing they have to do is demote it. Because they're trusting the fact that they've done enough conditioning to you to believe it.
I'll give some more insight on that. Has anybody ever heard of plutonium? When was it discovered? Plutonium was discovered around the same time that they supposedly discovered the planet Pluto. So when you study plutonium, that's how powerful Pluto is, because all this stuff is used to create bombs, right? That's what Pluto is. Okay? That's what the planet Pluto is.
Just a point of information, we're recording this, so that's why if you have anything to say, you have a question, please wait for the microphone because we're recording this, and the only way we pick it up is if you speak in the microphone. Thank you. Sante.
All right. Pluto going through Capricorn in general, you're talking about cultural changes, but what about for people who have a lot of personal planets in Capricorn?
That means that they have a lot of personal transformations that's going on. Now, before you can transform and be reborn, you must die. So that means there's a lot of things that will be ending in your life. I'll give you an example. Say you have a rising sign of Cancer. Now, if you look at the zodiac wheel, imagine this is your rising. Okay? Cancer is your rising sign. That means your house of partnership would be Capricorn. And the reason it would be Capricorn because they are direct opposite houses of each other. Okay? Now the sidetrack a little bit, that's the whole story of John the Baptist and Jesus Christ and being born 6 months before. 6 months before is 6 houses. John the Baptist is Pisces with water. Jesus Christ, born of a virgin in Bethlehem, is Virgo. But that's a whole another story.
All signs.
So if your rising is Cancer, your house of partnership, which deals with relationships and stuff like that, would be Capricorn. So imagine Pluto coming in to Capricorn, and you have a Capricorn as your house of partnership. That means all your relationships will be starting to be transformed. But to be transformed is what we call like ireti. It is time for you to reevaluate all of your relationships.
That's the old dude I was giving earlier. You have to reevaluate your relationships.
So if Pluto is coming in there and it deals with death, you may not be married long.
Also, your enemies will be revealed.
Correct.
He's actually telling you part of mine, which I don't mind telling people. I don't have nothing to hide. But I've been having people coming out, you know how you turn a light, a bunch of roaches start to scatter? I said, not him. Well, I don't like you, Baba. I never did.
So
no, go ahead.
If you...
Are you a Capricorn, man?
I am. But
I am too. We might need to talk.
I have an aunt who has a lot of planets in Capricorn.
I'm going to tell you something.
But she's really resistant to change. I didn't know how to
but
talk to
she
her.
going to change. She going to change. And see, even if you had no planets in Capricorn, when Pluto come in there, that's all you need. Okay? Now, what happens is that if you're a Capricorn, that means, in general, you're probably a leader. What Pluto does for people that are Capricorns is help transform them into their leadership role. Now, if you are a leader and Pluto comes into Capricorn and you dropped the ball years ago,
Become egotistical.
Now
Arrogant.
you made everybody will see you for who you are. So what happens is that you will be challenged. Why? Because Capricorn represents authority. It represents restriction. It represents anything dealing with leadership and government. So if you are a Capricorn and Pluto is coming into your life, either you embrace it and become the leader that you was born to be, or you resist it and you will be destroyed. Not physically, but mentally and spiritually. Because it's trying to get you to transform yourself to a higher level. That's all Pluto is trying to get you to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
First of all, respect to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
I'd like to offer a disclaimer in that I don't speak from a position of scholarship nor, learning other than just life experience. And
Yes.
I'm a relatively
That's
simple
one.
person. When you talked about the African minister and others commenting on the change that's going to come politically on the American scene, meaning there will no longer be a white man in the office, should we really see that as true change, or is it simply a superficial
It's
change?
cosmetic.
A surface change.
It
And the
only
master
becomes-
puppeteer is still basically doing his thing.
It only becomes
Behind the
real. It only becomes, change can only come about when whoever is sitting in the seat, you enforce that change.
See,
That's how it changes.
Barack can be there. But if none of us in this room follow through with that change, this is where it starts. If we don't push, just got a white man with black skin.
Yes.
Now, not that Barack is finna make the price of gas go down, or he's finna make life for black folks perfect. We all know better than that. But what he's talking about, the institution will have, there's enough energy to make the institution change. And let me say this, because of all the political analysts and all the experts, Stephanopoulos and all these people, some guy, this guy I really don't like. I don't think nobody, Pat Buchanan, a knucklehead, actually had one of the best things said when they asked him. I think Barack had won 7 or 8 straight. 11 straight. Well, at the time, they asked Pat Buchanan, what could Hillary Clinton do? He said, nothing. And he told the guy, hardball with Chris Matthews. He told Chris Matthews, what Hillary and the American people, what Hillary doesn't realize is that this is a movement. And I kind of leaned back. I said, look at Pat. So this is the movement. And the American people will vote for Barack Obama if he say we go sing and dance every day. Because the thing of it is, it's in you, in the spiritual DNA, to be a part of the change. Now, if you're scared, that's one thing. But if you're a warrior, like we've been talking about all year, you can ride with the wind. And see, if you ride with the wind, a lot of what he's saying, he's got to do.
What if experience has taught you to be not scared, but skeptical?
About?
The system, the lies and the demons who've been in control for the past, I don't know,
Well,
millennia.
that's just government. Truth lies within you. You don't want to change the government that much anyway. What you want is humanity to take precedent. But humanity belongs to non-governmental people. So when people say things like, how is God letting all these children in Sudan die without food? Well, at 11 o'clock tonight in every restaurant in this country, by law, we must throw it away. God don't have nothing to do with kids starving. Human beings. But if the human beings would say, I'm not throwing my food away, I'm going to send it to Sudan. What if we all decided we weren't going to pay our light bill? What they going to do?
Ashe.
Martin Luther King say, we're not going to pick up no trash. White folks say, we ain't going to pick up no trash. King said, trash won't get picked up. Garbage workers got what they want. Martin Luther King not going to ride no bus. For 1 year, black folks walked. And then they got what they want. But see, we too good. We're too comfortable.
Something gonna happen though.
Something gonna happen, like it or not. Everything he talked about, that was a word that was in there, but it was never spoken. It's called revolution. And see, as I was telling the client today, everybody's not prepared for a revolution. I'm not talking about gun training. A revolution deals with, you can sit here and train all you want. If there's a little boy that's going to make a videotape that tells his family what he's getting ready to do, and he runs a bomb-loaded truck into your building, he don't know what you know. He don't know nothing about the square root of an isosceles triangle. He don't know nothing about Pluto going into Capricorn. What he does have is something that he stands for. And when you stand for something, you're not just going to die for anything. So the preparation for the revolution is that you must have your belief intact. At that point, you won't mind dying. You're going to die anyway because death and changes is already here.
The interesting thing that he just said, he said your belief system will be intact, which is what is governed by Sagittarius, which predates and comes before Capricorn. It's just a natural order of things. That's why they say, give me liberty or give me death. He just so happened to say that during the time Pluto was going into Capricorn because he had just come out of Pluto coming out of Sagittarius. It's all about the mind.
Correct.
I'm thinking out loud, but that's why then it will go back to Sag for you to get your stuff in order to be prepared.
Because revolution is intelligence.
Right.
Matter of fact, oftentimes it's because intelligence has left the room, and that is the fallout. So yeah, the belief system is always comes first, and then here comes the action.
And then I'll give you, let's just say this. This won't be long, but he had said something earlier. Baba Femi said something earlier about there's a deity by the name of Shango. Okay? Shango is known to be the king, okay? He's the redeemer. But the meaning, what he really believes is he is the one that wants change. Shango, he wants change. His favorite wife, Oya, is change. But when you study Sagittarius, Jupiter and all its meanings, you would swear that you were studying Shango. So it makes sense for you to challenge things that are in power after you get your philosophical things in order. So if you are change, then your favorite husband would be one who wants to change. Okay? So we know change is here, but it's easier. The marriage is better when you want to marry change. Nobody wants to be forced to get married. So you just embrace change.
So my question, God, I got a bunch of them, but I'll keep it. So if Capricorn in your chart has been intercepted, what happens then? I mean, how will that affect you?
Same. It all depends on which house the interception has been taking place.
2, second house.
That affects your money.
Uh-oh.
And what do we talk about today? Your reading.
That affects your money because the second house represents the house of possession.
See, one of the things that I do in my institute, well, SangoDare is a teacher there as well, is that the requirements to be in my class is that you have an astrological chart and a numerical chart. It's your blueprint. You got a blood DNA blueprint. You got a spiritual blueprint. You know, the Creator gave you some papers. It's your sign. You're a Capricorn. You can be a knucklehead. You can be brilliant. And to study and to know it, because as above, so below. As within, so without. It's all one.
So what planets, or can you tell us what planets are associated with which orishas?
I can.
Will you?
I will. Pluto, of course, is very closely related to Oya. Okay? The sun is associated with Obatala. Just as Obatala is known as the creator of all human form, it is the sun, of course, that is the father of the planets, because they said everything was one. And boom, from there, as things evolve, the planets actually come from the sun.
Batala is also a star. Yes.
Yes. Then the planet Venus goes with Oshun. The moon goes with Yemoja.
Oshun is also Heteru.
The moon goes with Yemoja, which is who we would say is Aset. Yes. And Venus, yeah, Yemoja. Yemoja. In Yoruba, there's no Y's. That's Lana.
Yemoja. YEMOJA.
And that's the moon.
That's the moon. That's all set.
Then you have planet Mars. That is Ogun. In Egypt, you would say that's Herakuti. Ogun.
Herokuti.
But in Egypt, it's Herakuti. The one that removes obstacles, clears the way. The great warrior, the one that's never been defeated, the one that does not negotiate. He's not an ambassador.
That's Obatala. That's a star.
Mars. That is Ogun.
Do you have a resource that we could read to get this information in more detail out of?
Well, actually, the comparison of Orisha to planets and even the Kemetic deities
That's off though.
is you can get it out of Metuneta.
Some of it.
Yeah, well, some of it. It's not all
Some of it. You have some of the stuff is not in one source. You have to be a student that studies comparative religions and actually be able to put it together. Raul Nefer did a wonderful job on a lot of it.
It's not listed on your calendar?
No.
No. And what am I left?
It's actually going to be, we're putting
okay.
together a manual, and it'll be in there. No, deal with the Orisha, because you did Ogun.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
do
Mars.
Shango.
Shango is most closely, and when I say most closely, because a lot of these translations are not perfect, okay? But most closely related to Jupiter is Shango. To prove my point, Jupiter is known to be the double axe in Europe. He is known as justice, the same as Shango. He is known to be the king, the same as Shango. Okay? So once you study the mythologies, what if it's in Europe? What if it's in Africa? What if it's in Asia? Once you see the comparison in the mythologies, then you understand how to put them together. When they talk about Venus, well, we know Venus deals with love, sex, entertainment, all of that. So that easily goes with Oshun. If you're looking for a Ifa reference and an indigenous reference as far as the moon and Venus and things like that, Fatumbi, I believe, has a particular dictionary that actually has the Yoruba names for the moon and Venus, and it's attributed to Yemoja and Oshun. And it comes out of Ode Remo. Neptune is not closely associated, but if it was somewhat close to,
It's not
it'd be
associated
Oshun.
with any of the what they call the major Orisha. It's associated with it. I would, look at something like what we call minor Orishas, Babluaye, maybe Ochosi, something like that. But I don't know of anything closely affiliated with it, of the major.
You have to, Eshu would be Mercury, but you have to, because that deals with the message of the gods. Okay?
Eshu.
That's why when Mercury goes into retrograde, all the information and stuff gets shut down. It goes into chaos.
Usually Legba, it deals with communications, Mercury. Eshu is the divine messenger.
How do you spell it?
ESU.
ESU.
It's still a messenger. You put a J on the front, an S on the back. See, Jesus, divine messenger. Eshu, Jesus.
To answer your question on Neptune, Neptune is known as the sea god. Okay, it deals with sea god. Well, in Ifa,
Olokun.
that would be Olokun. Now, if you study Neptune and how it affects people, it deals, it's a lot of it is equivalent to Oshun,
O-L-O-K-U-N, Olokun.
but at the same time, it has mixed messages. So you can't just say this is Oshun and this is Olokun. Sometimes it doesn't work that way.
It's kind of like just as you might be a Capricorn, but you got all these different houses. So all of them kind of flow through you, just like all the Orishas, all the Nettas, they just all flow through you. These primaries, though.
If you go out in the world and you see a bunch of nines, that deals with Oya, that deals with change. If you have a bunch of nines, say in your name, that means you're a person that really wants things to change. You must embrace change. If you're a person that's born on the 9th, born on the 27th,
18.
born on the 18th, you're a person that deals with a lot of Oya energy. So it just depends. I mean, we could actually do a full chart and actually can see when Oya is going to be prevalent in your life.
I have a question. I have a young son who is a Capricorn and also happens to be almost Shango. So what can I do over this next 16 years to help him,
How
along
old
the
is he?
way?
7?
6.
When is his birthday?
December 24th, 2001.
You the math.
His Oya year was last year. 24th,
Mm-hmm.
you said 2001?
Yes.
You need to get him in the arts
Okay.
because he has a life path of a 3, which tells me he's a very creative child.
You're not going to work for nobody.
His parents don't
You
either.
ain't going to keep no job. You can forget about a 9 to 5.
Uranus.
Uranus is more closely related to Oya and Shango because Uranus deals with change. And it also deals with change in technology information, which of course is the Aquarian age. So it's closely related to Oya and Shango.
I wanted to know if the ancestors are more charged during this time, since Oya is related to the ancestors, or is the portal like more open between us and them at this time?
Absolutely. If you notice, a lot of the young babies that are coming back, and I know y'all heard this hundreds of times, the young babies coming back, you know, younger kids having problems with authority. You know, you can't expect for ancestors to keep coming back, not just succumbing and conforming to authority. You know, my brother, oldest brother's a former Panther, and he tell us, I said, you know, we dropped the ball with our kids, you know, because we did the civil rights, and the doors were open, and we got fat, and our kids got fatter, I guess, but we didn't tell our story. And now they, you got these ancestors back, and they don't want to listen because we have not, as Bernie Mac would say, we've been some punk parents. So, you know, I have 4 sons, 25, 24, 23, and 5. And they heard their story. And, you know, I'm not bragging the fact that they're not sagging, you know, they got good careers and stuff like that. But the fact of it is that it was rough. You know, they got teased. They knew I was, man, they on man a trip. Yeah, I'm a trip. I'll be a trip. They ain't have to go to jail and have to go to prison. You know, they're not on no pharmaceuticals. But the fact of it is, they have a respect for authority, first in the home, and then when they go out, they have a sense of what respect for authority is. But I think I was telling somebody, my son got stopped the other night by the police officer in Houston. And I think somebody said, I can't believe he said that in Texas. But my son, you know, he said, let me see your driver's license. My son said, let me have your badge number. Yeah, I was telling you about that. He's a college student. And he's not going to call him smart because my son knows what time it is. He's very nice, he's very eloquent. Just ask him, so what is your badge number? And, you know, him and the cop had a conversation. He got a ticket, but, you know, he felt better about himself, put it like that. You know, he'd slow down next time. But, you know, and I say that because it's not about you want people to disrespect authority, but we need to hold authority accountable. And we haven't done that. In the 60s, they held authority accountable. And now you have these ancestors coming back, and nobody's holding nobody accountable. No, they're not going to listen because they're coming into change. And if mom and dad ain't about it, they going to change everything you believe of how you're supposed to run your house. So, you know, we got to get tough. And there are us who spend a lot of time with the ancestors. I have an ancestral altar, and I also often visit the cemetery where my father's buried. And when I was saying earlier about still and getting those messages, you know, we've got to get in tune with the wind, and we got to listen and get instructions.
To shed some more light on your question, Olutando, Pluto and Oya is always here. The portal is no more open for Oya and the ancestors than they were five years ago. What happens is that based upon science, there's a certain portal that's more open than the others. If Pluto is in Sagittarius, that means the portal is truly open for a revolutionary aspect of your mind, your ideals, your philosophy. When Pluto goes into Capricorn, the portal is open for challenging authority, making the authorities accountable for their power. Sure. So that the only difference is the type of portal that's open, because Oya is always there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was tuning into the number 9 several years ago. I was thinking about going through a name change because I do vibrate with the number 9. My name comes out to number 9.
Okay.
And my birth number comes out to number 6. Somebody said that I had a lot of 9s in my name, and I might want to go ahead and change it because of the responsibilities that come from that. And I was wondering what your impression is about name changing. Are you always still connected to that same vibe? I happen to be born December 23rd. I'm a Sagittarius, 1 degree Capricorn.
You're in a year 9 right now.
And I have a Scorpio moon.
You're in a year 9 right now, personally. And
Ocean of emotion.
yeah, you're in a year 9 right now, so this year is going to be most definitely a year that you need to embrace change because you will be going through a lot of transition. To answer your question, yes and no. You are always connected to your birth name from a spiritual standpoint. Your mother always gets it right the first time on a spiritual level. Now, my name that was given to me by my godfather, SangoDare. I received another name when I became Babalawo, it was Fagbemi. So I'm SangoDare Fagbemi. I can do a numerology on my name now. The energy will look different. But all it does is highlight the energy you are in at that time. I can take your birth name and do a full numerology chart. It's going to be you. It's going to be you when you become 60. It will be you when you become 70, even when your name will be Malik Rakpata. But what a name change does is like a ritual. Say for instance, the number 9 deals with change, transformation. It deals with emotional changes. It deals with death. It deals with rebirth. But it also deals with reward. So when you change your name, what you're trying to do is vibrate on the highest level that number has in store for you. So if you change your name, will you change your contract? No. Can you enhance it? Yes. Does that answer your question? Because you can't, that's your contract.
Let me ask a different version of that. Say if I was to, I guess this would be the same answer. If I was to have a name change and it would still represent number 9. Okay.
Then it
would that enhance 9 anymore?
No. Only your character can do that.
Greetings, Babas. How y'all doing?
Hey, tonight.
Hey. I wanted to make a comment about sitting with the ancestors in meditation. I notice now, when I go sit, I'm getting instruction as soon as I sit down. Like,
Right.
It's not even quiet. I could have gone there 5 years ago and waited like 30 minutes and been great. But now it's like, as soon as I sit, I have to get back up and go.
Right.
Is this normal? I mean, is this part of the change that's happening?
Yeah, it is. It's not normal for some people.
Oh, okay.
But for others, it is. It's different.
Okay.
I know this sounds crazy, but what they taught us in Africa. One of the best ways to go to your ancestral altar, and we all grown here, is naked. Get in front of your altar naked. The lower back is where the ancestors are considered to be. So you ever notice people wail at the wall? Get in front of your altar and just rock. Because even the women of Africa, they dance like this. And this is the place where you want to rock. You want to create heat. And when you create the heat, that's when they'll come through. Some of us are natural channels. They'll just come in. We can be at Walmart, they'll come in. Yeah. But for other people that are just starting out and they come in that strong, definitely embrace it. One of the things that I would tell you to do is keep a bowl of just good spring water by your bed, because it helps to enhance your dreams. And I've been, I get a lot of calls about people with dreams. I do dream interpretations. So, you know, and the dreams are becoming more consistent with people, and they're sounding alike from different people. So it's like there's a message coming into everybody. You know, whether you're in Brooklyn, whether you're in Los Angeles, you know, whether you're in Chicago, Atlanta, that energy is coming. Incidentally, I'm gonna have my brother tell y'all a very interesting story about a particular city in this country. And we'll just tell you just how energy really is. We'll tell them about Seattle.
Yeah. Okay. In numerology, what we have discovered is Oya is very closely related to number 9, of course, because her number is 9. But if you have a lot of 2s in your chart, that sends off a red flag to me that you are highly suspect of depression. Okay? Now, when we went to Seattle, 7 people came to me. 6 of them had strong 2s in their charts, and all of them suffered from depression.
The first one that came to see me had a 2. She was, if anybody know E5, she was actually walking around with an issue. This is a deity we honor. It's a deity, it can be one of confusion. She walks around with it. And she just cried the whole lecture.
And she was confused.
And when she sat down and did the reading, and I got through, she said, everything you said is true, but I want to kill myself. The third person, well, I've contemplated suicide. I mean, to them, it's almost as common as the Starbucks up there. But Seattle has the highest suicide rate in the country.
Oya.
And the dark side of Oya is depression and anxiety. Very pharmaceutical, very suicidal.
Oya represents rain and thunder. Seattle, the sun hardly comes out. It's always overcast and gloomy. Oya represents humanitarianism, environmentalism, social change, and justice. If you go to Seattle, it's probably ranked number 1 in all of those categories.
It's so humanitarian. There's some people up there that practice E5. If you know anything about E5 tradition, oftentimes we'll offer a hen, you know, as sacrifice. You can't even get a hen.
It's against the law.
It's against the law. So these sisters were practicing E5, had these little bitty baby chicks. And then one lady said, well, we go to the grocery store and they get like a fryer at the grocery store that's already packed. And they offer it to Arisha. It was like, whoa. Tell them about the planet running through and the brother that just committed suicide.
Okay. There's something, when you study astrology, planetary lines run through different aspects of this planet. From San Francisco through.
That's Elegbox Town, all those crossroads and confusion and different cultures and communication and things like that.
Could you repeat what you said could cause for depression and anxiety?
Oya, is we were talking about her attributes. Okay, on her dark side, okay, deals with depression, anxiety. Because it deals with changes, sudden changes, winds of change. Oftentimes when changes come upon us, we can't embrace them. Oftentimes changes come, we can't, you know, as one of the topics, we can't detach. One of human beings' biggest frailties is that we cannot let go of certain things. We don't understand when it's over. I mean, relationships, jobs, it's time to move. We just don't get it. Everybody around us telling us, no, man, I think she loved me. And when those changes come and you can't embrace them, it can often put you in a place of depression. and anxiety. And I don't think the people in Seattle all went through bad relationships, but something is happening to when you get there. As beautiful as it is, you know, it's a very beautiful town, but a lot of depression. And I did readings for about at least 15 people, and I think 3 of them probably had some enthusiasm. And I made a joke. I said, I gotta get out of here, man. Yeah, I need to go jog, walk. I said, okay. I went outside, it started raining. And guess what I didn't want to do? I didn't want to jog. I didn't want to walk. So go to Starbucks.
Do you think people with twos in their chart are drawn to Seattle? People with twos in their chart, do you think they're drawn to Seattle?
Absolutely.
It's not that they're drawn to Seattle. Their divine consciousness creates Seattle. But I think they want us to wrap up, so most definitely in a bachelor. We'd like to thank y'all for coming out.
Let us give thanks for you coming out. SangoDare and Baba, both of you Babas, we appreciate you so much. Obafemi. Indeed. You have an announcement?
One more announcement.